What is job costing? In simple words, you don't need to be a CPA or an accountant to know if one of your jobs made money. If you can read a receipt or even keep a receipt, then you can do job costing. By the end of this video, you're going to know not only what job costing is, but also understand that at the end of every job did we take that job just to be busy, or did we take that job to make money? So we work with a lot of contractors, and one is a remodeler that we work with, and he was starting to grow in his remodeling business. So he started taking small kitchens and baths, little outdoor decks, things like that, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, and then started to pick up some steam, connected with some architects locally, and over time he had $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 remodels in houses. And eventually his goal is to work up to be a luxury custom home builder, is what he'd like to do. And so as he's going through this remodeling scenario, he would have these jobs at $150,000, $200,000, $250,000, be super excited about them, come back to me and go, hey, look at all these jobs that I'm getting. I'm so busy. And then one day I asked him, hey, do you know if you're making money? And his response was, well, I got money in the bank, so I must be making money, right? And so we kind of put the brakes on for just a second, wanted him to continue to be busy, but we wanted to step back. And what I'm about to show you is exactly what I showed him. Now, let me give you the job costing in simple terms. Did the job make money or did it not? In other words, is that job profitable or is it not? Not the business overall, just that job. So if I've got a contract value of $100,000 and I spent overall, I'm talking about cost of goods and overhead and everything incorporated in the job. If I spent $110,000, I lost money. And a lot of us are in situations like that, but because of cash flow timing, money comes in today, it may not go out for another 30 days, and how it all works in, it looks like you're making money. So I want you to kind of lodge that idea in the back of your head that if there's money in the bank, I must be making money. That is a myth, and we need to bust that myth because there's a lot of contractors that are living under that myth, and it's going to eventually cause them either to go out of business in a worst case nuclear kind of effort, or I think even worse, it causes you to get into what we call the revolving line of credit cycle that never stops revolving over and over and over again. So I will tell you this, if you're borrowing money on a regular basis, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it probably is a good indication or a leading indicator that your jobs may not be profitable. But how can we go down and really drill down job by job to see if that job's profitable and this job's profitable, and then the accumulation of those things will help us to understand the profitability of our business. All right, so there's three layers that I want you to think of when you're kind of looking at all of this as it relates to job cost, and that's why I want to make it super simple. First layer is the contract value, and this is what the actual contract value is. So if it's $100,000, $1 million, $10 million, 10,000, whatever it might be, this is your overall contract value, and it represents that big box that's around. The second thing is where the root of job costing comes in, and this is an acronym I want you to remember. It's the SLIME acronym. Now the I doesn't mean anything, but the SL and the ME are really important. So subs, labor, material, and equipment. If you can remember that, that is, you are well on your way to understanding proper job costing and understanding the profitability of each job that you interact with and that you take on as a contract. Now the third is what we call gross profit. Now I want you to remember this. Why do they call it gross profit? Because the number that comes back on this is gross, meaning there's still a lot of stuff that's going to come out of that number. And so yeah, it gives you a little indication, but fundamentally I don't even really like the word profit on this. I would prefer to do something like real revenue. So this is the real revenue that you have. Once you have the contract value and you subtract the subs, labor, material, and equipment, what you have left over is this real revenue, and from that real revenue is where you can actually run the overhead of your business. Rent, internet, gas, insurance, payroll, all of those things come out of this bucket. So here's job costing in its most simplistic form. You ready? Contract value. If this is thin, you have more money down here. If this is thick, you have less money down here. Subs, labor, material, and equipment imposes itself on the rest of the box. And so anytime, this is what's so interesting, if you can decrease your subs, labor, material, and equipment on any given job, necessarily you increase your job profitability on that job. That's where job costing can be really, really helpful. There are a lot of you as contractors who don't really, you kind of turn a blind eye to the subs, labor, material, and equipment. Hey, it'll all work out in the end. So you show up to a job and you've got material just sitting there that could have been returned, rebated. There's a variety of different things that we could have done with that if we would have just paid a little bit of attention to it. And we would have skinnied up this line right here, thus leaving more for everything that we have to actually run the business and generate profitability. Too many times we turn a blind eye to that and we'll just go, it'll work itself out. And I'll just get over it and then all kind of figure itself out. And in the end, it will be a wash. I don't want you to run your business that way. What I want you to do instead, as the contractor, and I would even argue that this is one of your primary job roles as the contracting company owner, is to understand job costing. We worked with an exteriors company for years, and during our time with them, we ended up building what we call the 6 fundamentals of their business. Meaning, when you hired somebody in as an estimator, as a project manager, superintendent, then what we would do is say, hey, there are 6 things, come hell or high water, you need to make sure that you do and you understand. You know what one of them was? Job costing. It was that important. And this business was doing about $70 million a year, so they had hundreds of jobs all throughout the year that needed to be job costed. So if you got 5 or 10 or 20, you can job cost those jobs that are there. Where this job costing play and understanding this box really comes in to help you is when you're reading your profit and loss statement. So usually you have revenue up here minus cost of goods, and one of the largest funders of your cost of goods is going to be this slime right here. And so this number is going to help inform what you have left over to be able to run the business. So if you can do proper job costing, it helps you become better at reading your profit and loss statement, which as an owner you need to be really good at. And if you can read your profit and loss statement, it helps you become better at job costing. It's all cyclical in how it works. But again, I want to put job costing in simple terms. Where does this fit in your business? Hey, make sure you click on the link in the description below. I have got a sort of a manifesto video of sorts. It's a longer video and it's really a masterclass on how to build a system for your construction business. And so you need to run the whole business in the same vein that I'm walking you through how to just do job costing. But in that business, there are 4 major elements. I'm just going to put them right here so you can see it. Purpose, people, process, and profit. And so job costing, vision, mission, values, that sort of things here, org charts, job roles, people, that's in your second P. All the processes like how to run an electrical walk, how to keep the office clean, all those are right here in the process. But the profit vertical is where this job costing sits. And so we need to get really good, not just at all 4 of these Ps or what we call the 4 foundational cornerstones, but you need to get really good at the profit vertical of this. And in order to get good, I've introduced you to 2 major tools. The job costing tool, 3 elements really, contract value, subs, labor, material, and equipment, and then you've got your gross margin after that, and the profit and loss statement. What's a profit and loss statement? It helps us understand our profit and our loss. It's super simple if we're able to do it, and if we'll give ourselves to be able to doing that. But make sure you click on that link below so it walks you through how to build the entire construction company where job costing can be a major part of it. Even though it's not the whole, it's a major part to help you to understand profitability of your work. Why is this profit talk all important? Why are all these things important? Because to run a construction company is hard. And there can be a lot of chaos associated with it. And our entire intent is to liberate you from that chaos to make time for the things that matter most. Let me do a little bit deeper dive on the SLIME acronym because I think it's important to understand. So your subcontractors and your labor. So subcontractors are going to be these folks that you subcontract with. And so you bring them in, they're not W-2 employees, and these are going to be in the construction space. You're a roofing subcontractor or your exterior subcontractor, whatever that might look like. Then labor is usually any direct labor that you hire. So for instance, this is not just a subcontractor, but sometimes you have labor that you hire as a W-2, but frankly, you want to tab them as a cost of goods. Why do we put things in cost of goods? Basically, if something goes in cost of goods, it means that if we didn't have work, we wouldn't pay it. But if we do have work, anything that's in the overhead, think about your core payroll, your management team, that sort of thing, they're likely to get paid whether you have work or not. The labor is more likely to not get paid if there's not work. It's more kind of on and off. Now, there's labor laws and all that you need to read up on, but understanding a little different, sometimes this labor can be W-2 in-house, but you're cost coding them to a cost of goods, or it can be a 1099 that you are sort of contracting for that particular job and what you're doing. And then you've got materials. That's usually going to be your 2x4s and your nails and your soil and dirt and whatever else that you might have. And then you're going to cost code equipment as a cost of goods up here because theoretically, if you didn't have work, you wouldn't have the equipment. Now, we could go on and on about is it better to buy or to rent or to whatever, and that's going to be a philosophical issue for you to be able to understand. But the reality is, when you look at this equipment, you need to think through it in terms of job costing and try to get away from overhead, even though if you own it, it's going to be a line item in your overhead. But theoretically, you think of it this way. If we didn't have work, we wouldn't have this. That's how the slime works. But with your overhead, if we didn't have work, we would most likely have this, or we would have to make some serious decisions. All right, so let's take equipment for instance. So you're a contractor and you've got nail guns and you've got air compressors, you might have a tractor, you might have some sort of piece of heavy equipment. And so you might think, well, how do I cost code this thing that I own? Well, what you can do is you can run an algorithm, and this is where AI can come in and help you, by the way, because AI can not only take that piece of equipment, it can amortize that equipment over time to depreciate it. So there's depreciating value of that equipment. And then you can take the annualized depreciating value of that equipment and begin to cost code it per job based on your projections. So you know, typically, in order for this piece of equipment to maximize its value this year, I need to have 150 hours of use on that equipment, whatever it might be. And so you start to cost code that out. So every time you put a contract in, you actually put a contract in the general conditions for a cost code value of the equipment for X based on the number of hours that you have. And so you can look at the price of that piece of equipment based on your average annual utility, divide that out by the number of hours that you're actually going to use it, and then you put a dollar figure per hour on that piece of equipment. Now make sure you include not only the cost of the equipment, but the insurance, the gas, everything else that goes in it. So give us a whole cost of that and give yourself that so you can understand a true cost of goods.